Good morning. This morning we're going to add the drawers to this stand, and that'll complete our model. But before we do that, we have to do a little cleanup. Recall back in, I believe it was part 3, we created these drawings, these 2D drawings that helped us design, well, which was the beginnings of the design of this stand. We no longer want those, and in fact, if I leave them here, they're going to cause me trouble in my next step, because they're 2D drawings, all designed with primitives. There's no components or anything here, or groups, and those primitives will get in the way if I leave them there. And since I have the model now, I no longer need this 2D drawing, so I'm going to delete all of this. And I also need to delete the top view of it. And to do that, I may have to move around here. And lastly, let's see. I have some other dimensions I have to delete. All of these were on the Z front, Z top, and Z top molding layers. And let me see if I can move this around so I can get it easily. Okay, so now let me select all layers, and I shouldn't see any of that. And since I now no longer need those layers, I'm going to get rid of the layers. I'll start with that, get rid of it, get rid of that, and for the moment I can get rid of the construction layer. Alright, so now I'm just left with my model so far. And so let's just look at this model front on. One of the things I want to do is determine how big the draws will be. The draw openings, as you recall, were 4 3/8. I want to do some calculations to figure out how big the draws themselves want to be in this model. So 4 3/8, I want to write that down as the opening height. Now I want to determine the opening width. To do that, I can probably come in here and that's 14 inches. So 4 3/8 and 14. I'll write that down. That's the opening. Now I want to determine how deep we want the draws. So I'll go to the top view. I'll take off the top. See if I can see inside here and determine how big we want these. Let's see. This is the draw support here. And I need to turn on the, there we go. I want to see how big the draw support is up front here. I believe it's, well, I don't think we're going to see it that way. Let me look at the ISO view. 15 3/8. So I'm going to make the depth of the draw 15 inches. Give myself 3/8 as a margin. Okay, now I can get rid of my x-ray and my tool. And now that I know the size of the box that I want to design for the draws, I can do some calculations that leave a little margin for expansion and contraction. All right, offline I did a little calculating, and what I decided was that the box height is going to be 1/4 inch less than the box opening height. So the box opening height is 4 3/8. We'll make the box height 4 1/8. That's more than enough for expansion, but it'll also allow the draw to move freely as we slide it in and out. The side dimension, the opening width was 14 inches. I want to leave a 1/16 of an inch on each side to make sure things don't rub. So the overall dimension will be 13 7/8. And lastly, the box depth, I already left 3/8 of an inch, bringing it to 15. So we'll stay with 15 for the box depth. Okay, now that we got those dimensions, what I want to do is use a tool that I developed. This tool right here called Ducktail Components. You can get it from my website. And it helps you automatically create the side of a draw. And once you have the side of a draw, you can duplicate it for the other side, and then you can use it to create the front and back of the draw. So we're going to use that tool next. I'm going to open it up first, and you'll notice it's too big for the screen, and I'll have to resize the screen and come back with it resized. Now let me open it up. I just click on this little icon here that shows the dovetail, and I get, well, maybe I can fit most of it in here. There we go. I think that might work. Let's see if that works. Okay, what you'll notice here is that I got 3 types of things I can do. I can design a traditional draw with beveled bottoms that slide in and out as the bottom expands. Or if I want to use plywood in a traditional draw design, this is a plywood bottom, I can design a box that looks like this. Or if I just want a tailboard, I can just design a tailboard for some other application. Today we're going to use a traditional draw design. Now the way this tool works is you have to supply a bunch of inputs, and then it'll calculate and automatically draw the draw side. So let's do that. One of the things it does, it automatically goes into SketchUp and looks for the current SketchUp model info units. And right now my model is set for fractional inches. Remember, I wanted the draw width. By the way, what do I mean by width? Well, if I click in this box, you'll notice the picture changes. And what that means is how wide is the draw side. Remember the draw opening height was 4 3/8, and I decided to make the draw side 4 1/8. So I've already entered 4 1/8 in here. I also decided that the box depth was going to be 15 inches, which is the length of this board. So 15 inches from there to there, and I've got that in here. And the thickness of the sides is 1/2 inch. If I come down here, notice the picture changes again, and it wants a dado width. Well, what's a dado width? Well, the dado width is how big is this dado that we're going to cut in the side of the draw. The dado depth is the depth of that dado. So those two numbers go here. The bottom support is how much is left below the dado, right here, to support the bottom. 1/2 inch in this case. The details of the front tails, in other words, if I click in here, you'll notice it gives me the front tail information. The 1/2 pin width is the width from the end of the dovetail here at the board end, that point right there, to this point right here, which is the top edge of the side. That's the half pin width. And that's, if you're doing tails first, dovetails, that's the line that you will mark at the end of the board. Now, the width between tails here is also the pin width, and I made that 1/4 of an inch as well. The tail depth is how deep do the tails go into the board. That's the tail depth. The dovetail angle can be specified as either degrees, which I did in this case, 8 degrees, or a ratio, 1:8, 1:7, or something like that I could put in here. And the number of tails in this case, I'm going to use 3 tails, 1, 2, 3. Now, I can specify the back as having a different set of parameters for all of these things, or I could specify it as being the same as the front tails by clicking this. Also, for each of these front and back tail options, I can say no front tails or no back tails or what have you, so that I can get tails just on one end of the board. What I did here is I just recreated the specification. Notice when I click in this box, the picture changes and tells me all about the back tail. So I recreated the specification. Now that I've done all of this and entered all these numbers for my particular design, I can hit draw. And it's going to draw this side at the origin in my drawing. So let's do that. Look what I have here. If I select it, I'll notice that I have an entity at the origin on layer 0 called the left draw side, and its definition name or component name is draw side. This is the part name, the unique part name. I can now just copy this and flip it along the red axis and space it the distance that I want to space the draws, which is 13 7/8. So that's what I'm going to do now. Let me do that. Well, first of all, I'm going to give myself a construction line, 13 7/8. And that's going to tell me where I want to place this thing. And what I'll do while I'm at it, give myself another construction line. Now I'll copy, using that point right there, and the control key. I'll copy that over to this point. And I'm going to flip it along the red axis. And there I go. Now if I've done that correctly, my draw sides are placed 13 7/8 inches apart. And I can get rid of my construction lines. Okay, now creating the back is not a big deal. By the way, I'm going to get rid of all layers here for the moment, just so I've got only this. And I'll take this out of here. So now I've got only this to work with. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start at this corner right here. I'm going to come down to this point right here, and why will be obvious in a moment. I'm going to create a rectangle, and I'll give it some thickness by bringing it out to this end point right there. Okay. Now, in the traditional draw design, the bottom is going to sit in these grooves, these dados, and slide and be able to slide around the bottom of this back, in and out, below the bottom of the back. So now this is my back. At this point I can select all of that plus the two sides, and I can do an edit, intersect faces with selection. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these, I'm going to create a layer, a hidden layer for the moment, and I'm going to call it Draw Sides. I'm going to put these on the Draw Sides layer. And since that was a hidden layer, the Draw Sides go away when I put them on the Draw Sides layer. I can always bring them back by making the Draw Sides layer visible. Right now, what I've got here is my back that I have to complete. And I can complete it by moving these in. Whoops. I don't want to fool myself. There's some lines down here I have to get rid of. And I believe there's going to be some. Let's look. Yep. There's some other lines here I have to get rid of. Now, if I've done this right, I can bring the entity info in, triple click, make this a component, call it drawback, create that component, and when I do, notice it says solid component 1 in model, and I want to see that solid component, that word solid there, because that means I cleaned up all those excess lines. And since I've only got 1 in the model, actually that's not true. I'm going to have more than 1 in the model. So for the moment, I'll just leave that blank. I'll come back and name that later. Okay, so now I can create another hidden layer called the drawback. I'll put this on the drawback layer. And I'll bring my draw sides back in. Go to the front view, ISO. And this time I want to create the front. So I'll again use the same technique. Now on the front, I'm going to go all the way to the bottom corner here, because unlike the back, which only goes down to the top of where these dados come, the front goes all the way down. But I'll use the same technique, bring it out to that corner. Select everything. Intersect faces with selection. And I will get rid of my draw sides. And now I've got to clean this up. This one's going to be slightly more difficult. but not much. Move these in. This one I'm going to have to move in twice. There we go, because of that line that stopped there. Oh, let me go move these back. I got to stop there. Got to move it in again. Stop there this time. Move this in. Move that in. Clean up. And let's see. Looks like I got everything. And so for the moment I'm going to make this a component. Call it Draw Front. And I got the word solid, that's good. I did all the cleanup, and it's a draw front. I haven't named the part name yet. I'm going to create a layer and put it on the draw front layer. Okay. Now, if I bring in the draw front, draw back, and draw sides, I've got a box, no bottom yet, but I got a box. Let's take a look at it. This is obviously the back here. I'm going to create a bottom. The bottom's going to have beveled edges, 8-degree beveled edges. So if I look at it from the back, what I'm going to do is take the protractor tool, come out like this and down 8 degrees. Do the same thing right here at this little corner of the dado. Come out along the red axis and then down 8 degrees. And the other thing I'm going to do, take an edge here on the back. This is the bottom of the back. Come down along the blue a 1/2 inch. That represents the thickness of the bottom. Now with that, I can draw in the outline of the bottom. And to do that, I'm going to start right here at this magic point, right here. I'm going to come down to this intersection, over to this intersection, up to here, that intersection, up there, down here. And when I do that, you couldn't see it unless we turn it this way. But now notice that we have the outline of the bottom. I can now get rid of the construction lines. And that bottom is going to go forward all the way to the front. So let me do that right now. Bring it all the way up to this front edge right there. And now let me get the draw out of there for the moment. And I'm going to go look at the front of this ISO view. There's the front edge. All right, now what the bottom is going to have a little tongue on it that's going to go into the front draw, and the tongue is going to be 1/4 of an inch thick. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to come down from there along the blue 1/4 of an inch. Then I'm going to use the that didn't look right. That looks better. I'm going to get rid of this first one that I did because it wasn't right. Okay. Now I'm going to take the line tool, and at this intersection right here, and over to this intersection right here, I'm going to draw a line, and I'm going to pull out this tongue 1/4 of an inch. See what I have? A little tongue right here in the front, 1/4 of an inch. All right, now that's the bottom. I'll make it a component. Before I do that, let me get rid of my here. Make it a component. Call it draw bottom. And I'm going to add a hidden layer called draw bottom. And put that on the draw bottom layer. Now I'm going to bring the draw bottom back along with, draw bottom, along with the draw front. What I have to do is create a dado in the front for that tongue. Probably the easiest way to do that is I'll go into Edit Component mode here. Let me bring the draw bottom back by going to View, Animation, View, Component Edit, and uncheck Hide Rest of Model. And now I want to mark where this is going to be. There we go. 1/4 of an inch. And let's see if I can do this. All right, now I'll get rid of, there we go. And now I ought to bring that down 1/4 of an inch along the blue axis. And I can pull that in 1/4 of an inch. Whoops. There we go. All right, now something doesn't feel good about that to me. No, it's fine. It's perfect. Okay. Now I can get rid of my construction lines. Well, I may have to go into component edit because I was in component edit mode. Well, no, I can just go up here and say edit, delete guides. There we go. All right, so now I've got the front with the groove in there. I'm going to get rid of the draw bottom for the moment. Now, what I have to do is finish the draw front off. The design of this draw is going to be such that the draw front is going to, I have to go offline and do some calculations. I'll be back in a moment. Okay, I just did some calculations offline. And if you may not recall this, but way back in part 3, I believe it was, we decided that the draw front would extend below the draw opening 5/16 of an inch. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a line down here 5/16 of an inch. Now remember that the draw opening was 4 3/8 and I made this 4 1/8. So there's another 1/4 of an inch or 4/16 of an inch of gap between the top of the draw box and the draw opening. So I've got to add that to 5/16, which will give me a total of 9/16. So I'll come up 9/16. And lastly, I'll put a line there, a line there, and draw a face. Okay, now this represents the real draw front. That is what you will see from the outside. And we want this to have a thickness. And the thickness of the draw front wants to be 7/8 of an inch. 4/8 is taken up with the, or 4/8 or a ½ inch is taken up with the pins here. So I'm going to make this 3/8 of an inch thick. Okay. And I can get rid of my guides now. Okay, now we're going to add that draw front. We're going to add this piece we just created to the draw front. The easiest way to do that is to first of all explode what's now called the draw front. I'll just explode this. Now I got some things I want to erase. Erase these lines that are not needed. Go over to the other end, do the same thing. I'm actually erasing these lines, but what you're seeing left there is the blue axis. And if I get rid of the blue axis, or get rid of the axis altogether, you'll see I've actually erased those lines. All right, now I can reselect all of this, make component, call it draw front. It's going to complain that I already have a component called draw front, and I'm going to tell it to replace it. All right, now I'm going to bring back let's see, all of the draw parts. Draw back, draw bottom, draw front, and draw sides. All right, and now I have my draw. The only thing I don't have is a draw pull. I'm not going to design and draw the draw pull here, but I'm going to copy it from another application, actually from my dresser. I'm going to copy it and bring it in here. So let me go offline and copy it and then bring it back in here. I'll be back in a moment. Okay, I'm back and I'm going to do an edit. What I did was I went to my dresser model, did an edit copy of the draw pull with the draw pull selected, and now I'm going to do an edit paste. And I can place this any place I want, and for the moment, let me just place it here. Now if I look at this draw pull, you'll notice that in the design of the draw pull, I've left two little crosses. And those are 3 inches on center. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go to the front of my draw. And down here, find the center right there. I'm going to find the center of this, which is right there. And I'm going to come out 1.5 inches and 1.5 inches. I'll get rid of this one. I'll clear. Oh, by the way, what I should mention is that when I did a paste, when I copied this from my dresser model, it was on the draw pull layer. So when I pasted it in here, a draw pull layer was created, and this is on the draw pull layer. You can see that here. It's on the draw pull layer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to clear all layers. I'm going to put this on the draw front layer, and I'm going to bring back draw pulls. Now what I can do is now I've placed that where I want it, and if I bring back, and with a little luck I can delete my guidelines if I've done this correctly, and I can bring back all the draw parts, draw back, bottom, front, draw sides, and I now have my draw. Okay, I'm going to copy this draw and stick one above the other. Now, if you recall from parts 3 and 4, the draws from one edge to another was 5 1/8 inches. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this whole thing. With the control key, move it up along the blue axis, and I'm going to hit the up arrow to make sure I get it on the blue axis. 5 1/8 inches. Now a little math will tell me the following. Remember that I said I wanted to overlap the draw openings by 5/16 of an inch. Well, if this one overlaps the opening on the bottom side by 5/16 and this one overlaps the opening by 5/16 on the top side, that's 10/16 or 5/8. So 5/8 from 3/4 of an inch, which is the thickness of the divider between these two, I should get 1/8 of an inch. So that means that should be 1/8 inch, and it is. I've got a gap between the draws of 1/8 of an inch. All the arithmetic works out. Now what I want to do is I want to bring back and I want to place these in here. And to do that, I'm going to take the top off. Let's get rid of some stuff I don't need here. Okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to get rid of, I'm going to leave this banding on, because that can tell me where I want these draws. So I'm going to leave the banding there. I'm going to get rid of the bottom supports, leave all the draw parts, get rid of the dust panels. Pretty much get rid of everything else. And what this represents is, first of all, the opening in the width dimension, and it also represents where the bottom of the draw sits. So the first thing I'm going to do is select those. Then I'm going to come down here, and with the move tool, I'm going to pick this point right here. I'm going to bring that up here till it sits at the top corner point. Now that's not all I need to do. Remember, I wanted a 1/16 of an inch on each side. You'll notice that the overhang here is 1/8 of an inch. So I got to move this 1/16 of an inch to the right. Along the red, 1/16. And now I should be fine. I'm going to bring in all the parts again. Look at this front on. You notice I've got a 1/16 of an inch gap there, 1/16 of an inch gap there. Otherwise, the draws are centered the way they're supposed to be. And everything is cool. And there you have it, our model. One last thing I might do is if I bring in the scenes, I'm going to get rid of all the scenes. I think I have one last layer hanging around that I want to get rid of. Front view, I'm not sure what that, oh, I remember what that was for. Okay, so I'm going to take front view layer out of here. I'm going to add one more scene. I'm going to call it Perspective. And I've got a tab up here. I'm going to show everything. And I'm going to show it in the front. Start off with the front ISO view. And I'll select everything. Actually, I don't need to do that. what I'll do is first of all go to perspective view, and again okay, there you have it. Updated view, the perspective view, and the model is completely done now. The only thing that's not done is dimensioning. And so what I'll do next week is during this week I will dimension this whole thing, and I will provide you, I won't show you, I won't do a video showing you how to dimension it. I assume you know how to do that. And if you don't, you can take my beginner SketchUp course to find out. But I will dimension the whole thing, and in next week's post I will give you the final model. Okay, this has been a long video. It's 47, almost 48 minutes. So I'll say so long until next week. See you. Bye.